I died without anyone noticing. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of machines. Rain tapped lightly against the window, each drop sounding heavier than the last. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my body weak, my breathing shallow, my fingers cold no matter how tightly I wrapped them in the blanket. My phone was beside me. I checked it again. Still nothing. No calls. No messages. I already knew why. Ethan was busy. Someone mentioned it earlier in a careful, pitying voice. My husband was attending a wedding. A grand one. Elegant. Full of smiles and blessings. Grace Lynn's wedding. His first love. I didn't feel angry anymore. Anger required energy, and I had none left. What hurt was the strange clarity that came at the end. 3 years of marriage flashed before my eyes like a badly edited film, quiet dinners, empty conversations, his back as he walked away, his silence when I cried. I had been Mrs. Ethan Carter for 3 years. And yet, at the end of my life, I was alone. When my vision began to blur, I wondered if Ethan would regret it. If, even for a moment, he would think of me when someone mentioned my name. That thought faded as darkness closed in. I woke up gasping. Air rushed into my lungs so suddenly that it hurt. I sat up, heart pounding violently, my entire body trembling as if I had been pulled out of deep water. Sunlight spilled across the room. It was warm. Too warm for a hospital. I froze. This wasn't the place where I died. The room was spacious and clean, decorated in neutral colors. Everything was orderly, untouched. On the bed beside me lay a thin document folder, neatly placed as if waiting for me. My heart skipped a beat. I reached for it slowly. The moment I saw the title, my fingers went numb. Marriage agreement. The date printed at the top made my breath catch in my throat. 3 years ago. No mistake. No illusion. I was back. Memories crashed into me all at once. The signing. The handshake. The way I had convinced myself that this marriage could become something real. That even if Ethan didn't love me now, he might one day. I laughed softly, bitterly. I already knew how that story ended. The door opened. I looked up. Ethan stood there, tall and composed, wearing a black suit that fit him perfectly. He looked younger than the man I last saw, less tired, less hardened. His expression was calm, professional, as if we were discussing a business deal rather than a lifelong commitment. "Have you read the contract?" he asked. His voice was exactly the same. Distant. Controlled. Empty of warmth. "Yes," I replied. He paused, as if expecting something more. In my past life, I had hesitated here. I had asked questions I already knew the answers to. I had searched his face for reassurance that never came. This time, I didn't. "This marriage is for mutual benefit," he continued. "There are no emotional obligations. As long as appearances are maintained, the Carter family will not interfere with your personal life." I nodded calmly. No interference. That was a lie, but I didn't bother correcting it. I picked up the pen. Ethan watched me closely now, his gaze sharper, more alert. Maybe he sensed something was different. Maybe it unsettled him that I wasn't nervous, that my hands didn't shake. I signed my name without hesitation. Lily Carter. When I handed the document back, his fingers brushed mine briefly. He pulled away immediately. "If you regret this later," he said, "don't say I didn't make things clear." I met his eyes. "I won't regret it." He looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to read something on my face. Then he turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. The room fell silent again. I sat there, staring at the contract, my name printed so neatly beneath his. In my past life, this moment marked the beginning of my quiet suffering. This time, it marked something else entirely. I finally understood the truth. This marriage was never a chance at love. It was a cage. And now that I knew the ending, I would not waste my life trying to soften a man who never intended to turn around. I stood up, sunlight warming my skin, my heartbeat steady. This time, I wouldn't wait to be abandoned. When the time came, I would leave first. Marriage did not change Ethan. That was the first thing I confirmed. The second was that I had changed completely. We moved into the Carter family home 3 days after the contract was signed. In my past life, I had arrived with nervous excitement, carefully choosing outfits, rehearsing polite answers in my head. This time, I unpacked my suitcase with calm efficiency. No expectations meant no disappointment. Ethan rarely stayed home. He left before sunrise and returned long after midnight. Sometimes I heard the sound of the front door opening, sometimes I didn't. Either way, he never came looking for me. In the beginning, I waited out of habit. Then I stopped. Mrs. Carter made her presence known on the first morning. She sat at the head of the dining table, posture straight, expression composed. Her eyes swept over me like a scale measuring worth. "So," she said coolly, stirring her tea, "you're officially part of the family now." "Yes," I replied. She frowned slightly, clearly dissatisfied with my lack of enthusiasm. "In this house," she continued, "a daughter-in-law must know her place. You married into the Carter family through a contract, not affection. I hope you understand that. In my past life, I had flushed red and apologized immediately, promising to work hard, to be obedient, to never embarrass them. This time, I simply nodded. I understand. That seemed to throw her off. Ryan, Ethan's younger brother, laughed from across the table. "Mom, don't scare her. She looks calmer than expected." Calm. It sounded almost like an insult. Ethan didn't look up from his phone. "As long as there are no problems." I followed his gaze. His screen reflected in the glass tabletop emails, stock updates, work. There was no space for me there. Breakfast ended quietly. Too quietly. Mrs. Carter watched me as I stood to leave. "You don't cook?" "I can," I said, "but the house staff already prepared everything." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "A good wife should be more proactive." I smiled politely. "I'll keep that in mind." I didn't. That afternoon, I took a walk around the neighborhood alone. The Carter residence was located in an expensive, silent area, where even the wind felt controlled. In my past life, I rarely went out without informing someone. I was afraid of being criticized, afraid of being seen as useless. Now, the fear was gone. When I returned, Grace Lynn's name floated through the hallway. "She's coming back to the country," Mrs. Carter said casually to Ethan. "Such a capable girl. It's a shame she didn't marry into our family." My steps slowed. In my past life, this was where my heart shattered quietly. Where jealousy and insecurity twisted together until I could barely breathe. This time, I felt distant. "Oh," Ethan responded, tone neutral. "She's attending a business dinner tomorrow." "You should go," Mrs. Carter said pointedly. "It's important to maintain old connections." He agreed without hesitation. Neither of them acknowledged me standing there. I turned and walked away before they noticed. That night, Ethan came into the bedroom for the first time since the wedding. He stood by the door, jacket still on. "Tomorrow, I'll be home late." "I know," I replied, pulling the blanket over myself. He hesitated. "You don't need to wait up." I looked at him. I wasn't planning to. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, but it disappeared just as quickly. "Good," he said. He left. I lay there in the dark, listening to the silence settle around me. In my past life, this silence crushed me. I filled it with questions, tears, and hope that hurt more than it healed. Now, I let it be. The next day, Mrs. Carter assigned me social duties, charity meetings, luncheon appearances, polite smiles. I attended them all flawlessly, saying exactly what was required and nothing more. At one gathering, a woman whispered, "Mrs. Carter's daughter-in-law seems detached." Detached. That was fine. That evening, while Ethan attended his dinner with Grace, I sat alone in the study with my laptop open. The glow of the screen felt more real than anything else in that house. I reopened old files. Contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. Skills I had abandoned. In my past life, I told myself I had no choice. This time, I knew better. If this family only saw me as a decoration, then I would become something they couldn't ignore. When Ethan returned late that night, I was already asleep. For the first time since our marriage began. I didn't wait. The Carter house ran on rules no one ever said out loud. Breakfast at 8. Silence during meals. Polite laughter when Mrs. Carter spoke. Disappearance when she was displeased. In my past life, I spent every day trying to decode her moods, adjusting myself accordingly. Now, I watched from a distance. I learned quickly that indifference unsettled her more than rebellion ever could. "You're going out again?" she asked one morning, her eyes sharp as she folded her napkin. "Yes," I replied calmly. "To where?" "Work." That single word made the entire table go quiet. Ryan looked up first. "Work? I thought you didn't have a job." "I do now." Mrs. Carter set her teacup down slowly. "A Carter daughter-in-law doesn't need to work. People will talk." I smiled lightly. "People always talk." Her expression darkened. "What kind of work?" "Consulting," I said. "Remote, mostly." That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the full truth. Ethan didn't say anything. He was scrolling through his phone, as usual. In my past life, I would have waited for him to defend me, to say something, anything. Now, I didn't care. "If it interferes with family responsibilities," Mrs. Carter warned, "you should reconsider." "It won't," I said. She didn't look satisfied, but she let it go. For now. I rented a small office under a temporary company name. Nothing impressive. Just a desk, a chair, and a window that let in real sunlight. I liked that place more than the Carter mansion. Every day, I reclaimed something I had once given up. My skills hadn't disappeared. My mind hadn't dulled. I worked quietly, carefully, building connections again. One project led to another. One contract opened a door I thought was closed forever. No one at home noticed. And that was exactly what I wanted. Grace Lynn appeared more often after that. Sometimes her name came up during dinner. Sometimes she visited in person, bringing gifts, smiling warmly like she belonged there. Mrs. Carter adored her. Ryan joked easily with her. Ethan treated her, gently. Not intimately. Just enough to make it hurt, if I still allowed it to. One afternoon, I came home earlier than usual and found Grace sitting in the living room. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Lily," she said warmly, standing up. "We finally meet properly." "We've met before," I replied. She blinked, then laughed softly. "Oh, right. But we never really talked." She was beautiful in a way that felt effortless. Confident. At ease. The kind of woman who didn't need to ask for her place. "I've heard you're working now," she said casually. "Yes." "That's admirable," she said, though her tone carried faint surprise. "Ethan never mentioned it." "He doesn't mention many things." Grace studied me for a moment, then smiled again. "You're different from what I imagined." I met her gaze calmly. "So are you." She didn't know how to respond to that. That night, Ethan came into the bedroom while I was reviewing documents on my laptop. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Working." He paused. "At this hour?" I nodded. "Deadlines don't care about time." He watched me for a moment, then said, "You don't have to push yourself. The Carter family provides everything." I looked up. In my past life, that sentence felt like security. Now, it felt like a leash. "I'm not pushing myself," I said evenly. "I'm choosing this." He frowned slightly, as if trying to understand something just beyond his reach. "Grace mentioned you seemed different," he said. "Different from what?" "From before." I closed my laptop. People change. He didn't argue. He also didn't agree. As days passed, the tension in the house thickened. Mrs. Carter began assigning more responsibilities, testing my obedience. Ryan mocked my hobby. Grace's presence became constant. But something else was changing too. Ethan started noticing when I wasn't there. When dinners were quieter. When the house felt emptier. He didn't say anything. Not yet. But for the first time since our marriage began, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. And quietly, steadily, something I planted began to grow. Grace moved into the guest room 2 days later. No one asked my opinion. Mrs. Carter announced it over breakfast as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Grace will be staying for a while. Her apartment renovation is delayed. Ryan clapped his hands. Perfect timing. The house finally feels lively. Ethan said nothing. I said nothing too. In my past life, this was where I would have felt humiliated. A wife watching her husband's first love settle into the same house, under the blessing of his family. I would have swallowed my discomfort, told myself to be understanding, to be generous. This time, I simply accepted the information and finished my tea. Grace smiled at me apologetically. I hope you don't mind, Lily. It's not my house, I replied honestly. I don't get to mind. The air shifted. Mrs. Carter's gaze sharpened, but she said nothing. Grace's presence changed the rhythm of the household. Laughter returned to the dining table. Conversations extended. Mrs. Carter's mood improved visibly. Ethan stayed home more often ostensibly to accompany guests, but I noticed the way his attention drifted toward Grace without intention. It wasn't romance. It was familiarity. That was worse. One evening, I returned late from work and found them sitting in the living room. Grace was leaning forward, animated, while Ethan listened quietly. The lamp cast a warm glow around them, softening their features. They looked natural together. I stopped at the edge of the room. Ethan looked up. You're back. Yes. Grace stood. We were just talking about university days. Ethan used to be so serious back then. He still is, I said. Ethan glanced at me. Grace laughed softly. Maybe a little less. I excused myself and went upstairs. Later that night, Ethan came into the bedroom. Why didn't you join us earlier? He asked. I was tired. You've been tired often. I looked at him. Is that a complaint? No, he said quickly. Just an observation. Silence settled between us. Then he said, Grace didn't mean anything by staying here. I know. He frowned. Do you? Yes. That seemed to irritate him more than denial would have. Lily, he said slowly, you don't have to pretend you're fine. I met his eyes steadily. I'm not pretending. He searched my face, as if looking for cracks that refused to appear. The next day, Mrs. Carter called me into the study. You're being careless, she said bluntly. People are starting to talk. About what? About your attitude, she snapped. A wife should know when to step back. Grace has always been close to this family. I can see that. Her eyes narrowed. Are you implying something? No, I said calmly. I'm observing. She stood up. Don't forget your place, Lily. This marriage exists because the Carter family allowed it. I smiled faintly. And it continues because the contract allows it. Her face darkened. That night, Grace accidentally, or perhaps deliberately, created the misunderstanding they had been waiting for. I returned home to find Ethan in the living room, his expression cold. Where were you? He asked. At work. You didn't answer your phone. I was in a meeting. Grace stood nearby, looking hesitant. Lily, I saw you this afternoon near the hotel on Riverside Road. I blinked. Yes. I had a client meeting there. She bit her lip. With a man. Ethan's gaze sharpened. So now you're lying, he asked. In my past life, I would have panicked. Explained. Defended. Cried. This time, I simply said, believe what you want. He stared at me, stunned. You don't even care to explain? No, I replied. Because this conversation isn't about truth. Silence fell. Grace looked uneasy now. I walked past them, calm and steady, leaving Ethan standing there with a confusion he had never felt before. That night, I slept peacefully. For the first time, the pain didn't follow me. And somewhere in the quiet, I felt the shift. The decision came quietly. No argument. No dramatic trigger. Just a clear moment one morning when I looked at my reflection and realized I felt nothing when I imagined staying. That was enough. I requested a meeting with Ethan on a Friday evening. Not at home. Not at his office. A neutral cafe near the river, quiet and unassuming. He arrived on time. You sounded serious, he said, sitting across from me. I am. I took out the prepared documents and placed them on the table. He looked down. Divorce agreement. For a long moment, he didn't move. This isn't funny, he said finally. I'm not joking. His jaw tightened. Is this because of what happened the other night? No. Then Grace. No. Then what? His voice rose slightly, irritation creeping in. If you want attention, this isn't the way. I interrupted him gently. This marriage has reached its end. That stopped him. You knew from the beginning what this marriage was, I continued calmly. A contract. 3 years. No emotional responsibility. We haven't reached 3 years yet, he said sharply. I have. He stared at me as if I had said something impossible. You're running away, he said. I shook my head. I'm walking away. The difference mattered. He pushed the documents back. I won't sign. That's your choice, I said. The contract allows unilateral termination. The lawyers will proceed regardless. His eyes darkened. You planned this. Yes. Something in his expression shifted, not anger, not pride. Uncertainty. When did you become like this? He asked quietly. I looked at him carefully. When I realized I had already lost once. He had no answer. That night, the Carter house erupted. Mrs. Carter stormed into my room, her face pale with fury. How dare you humiliate us like this? I followed the contract. You're throwing away everything we gave you. I'm returning it. Ryan scoffed. You think you can survive outside without the Carter name? I met his eyes. Watch me. The next morning, my company officially launched. My real name. My real work. The press release went live before the Carter family could stop it. Industry contacts reached out. Congratulations poured in. My phone didn't stop ringing. Mrs. Carter stared at the screen in disbelief. You hid this? Yes. Ethan read the article in silence. It was the first time I saw something like regret flash across his face. I moved out that afternoon. No dramatic farewell. No tears. Just a suitcase and a quiet exit. Ethan followed me to the door. You don't have to go this far, he said. I do. Why? I paused, then answered honestly. Because if I stay, I'll disappear again. His voice lowered. If I change. I turned back. That's not my responsibility. And I left. After I left, the world did not end. That surprised everyone except me. My days became quiet in a different way. Not the suffocating silence of the Carter house, but a calm that allowed me to breathe. I moved into a small apartment near my office. The windows faced the street. I could hear people laughing outside, cars passing, life continuing. I slept well. That alone told me I had made the right decision. Ethan started calling 3 days after I moved out. At first, I didn't answer. Then the messages came. Short ones. Controlled ones. We need to talk. This isn't how things should end. You're being unreasonable. I deleted them all. When he finally showed up at my office, it was raining. He stood outside the glass doors for a long time before coming in, his suit damp, his hair slightly out of place. He looked unfamiliar. Not the composed CEO everyone admired. Just a man who had lost control of his situation. I didn't know you'd built all this, he said, looking around my office. I know. That wasn't what I meant, he said quickly. I mean, I didn't know you were capable of this. I smiled faintly. You never asked. He swallowed. You should have told me. I shook my head. You should have looked. Silence stretched between us. The house feels empty, he said suddenly. Even when Grace is there. I looked at him calmly. Then you finally understand. Come back, he said. We can start over. I studied his face. There was urgency now. Regret. Fear. Love. No. Love doesn't arrive when someone leaves. It's too late, I said. He clenched his fists. I'm trying. For the first time, I replied. And that's the problem. His voice cracked slightly. I lost you, didn't I? Yes. The word fell softly between us, final and absolute. He didn't stop me when I turned away. Weeks passed. The Carter family tried everything: pressure, apologies, even Grace's sudden withdrawal. It didn't matter. The past had already finished playing its role. One evening, I saw Ethan again at an industry event. He stood across the room, watching me laugh with colleagues, confident and steady. He didn't approach. He finally understood. Some things cannot be chased back. Later, as I left the venue, rain fell lightly. The city lights reflected off wet pavement, familiar and comforting. I walked forward without looking back. For the first time in 2 lives, I chose myself. Ethan's POV. I used to believe that stability meant control. As long as things didn't change, as long as everyone stayed in their place, life would remain manageable. That was how I ran my company. That was how I treated my marriage. Lily fit neatly into that structure. She was quiet, reasonable, never demanding. She didn't cry loudly or argue recklessly. When I came home late, she was there. When I didn't come home at all, she didn't question it. I told myself that was compatibility. I was wrong. I only realized something was different when the house became too quiet. Not the comfortable kind of silence, but the kind that presses against your ears until you're forced to notice it. She stopped waiting. She stopped asking. At first, I thought it was maturity, growth. I even felt relieved. Fewer emotional responsibilities meant fewer distractions. I didn't see it for what it was. Detachment. When Grace came back, everyone reacted the way I expected, except Lily. She didn't compete. She didn't complain. She didn't even misunderstand. That should have scared me. Instead, I ignored it. The night she asked for a divorce, I felt something crack. Not anger. Not betrayal. Panic. For the first time, something was happening that I couldn't stop by staying silent. I told myself she was bluffing. She wasn't. When her company launched, I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Her name. Her work. Her confidence. All things I had lived beside without ever seeing. I thought providing was enough. I thought absence was neutral. I thought love was something that would wait. The house feels different now. Even with people inside, it echoes. Sometimes I find myself listening for footsteps that won't return. I notice things too late: her favorite cup still in the cabinet, the empty space in the closet, the way the air feels colder at night. I went to her office once. I told myself I just wanted to talk. That was a lie. I wanted forgiveness without having earned it. She looked at me the way you look at someone from a past life, familiar, but no longer relevant. That was when I understood. She didn't leave to punish me. She left because she was already gone. I see her sometimes at events. She stands taller now. She laughs easily. She doesn't look in my direction. That hurts more than anger ever could. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't shout. It waits. And by the time it speaks, there is no one left to hear it. I lost my wife long before she walked away. I just didn't notice until she was already free.